Welcome back to the Black Nerd 2.0 show. Today we're going to talk about the trailer for X-Men Apocalypse. Unless you've been living under a rock, you had to have heard about the new X-Men trailer, X-Men Apocalypse. Now, X-Men Apocalypse is the third installment of the second half of Fox's X-Men franchise. Confusing? The original X-Men movies came out in the early 2000s, and that's where you have Hugh Jackman first taking on the role of Wolverine, and Halle Berry starred as Storm, and didn't do such a great job.
Sort of like a familiar friend, someone that I've missed for a while, and it's good to put the white hair back on, if you can believe that.
And I'm not really such a big fan of the first installment of X-Men movies by Fox. They were a little underwhelming. What I didn't like about the original set of X-Men movies were it felt like a bunch of kids with powers living in a house. I had no emotional attachment to these mutants whatsoever. And with no careful character development, I didn't care about these people. And the movies, while watchable, they are very forgettable. I can't even remember the plot to any of the original X-Men movies. Shit, all I remember is Jean Grey catching the Phoenix and killing every goddamn body. How the fuck do you come back from that? The mutants were off. The only characters they got right were Wolverine, Magneto, and Professor Xavier. And I won't even get into X-Men Origins Wolverine. They even had to fix Deadpool in that movie. If you didn't notice, Ryan Reynolds was the original Deadpool. They sewed his mouth shut and he was looking like Baraka from Mortal Kombat. He had these blades that came out of his hand. He had these weird eyes that were kind of like Deadpool's eyes, I guess, with the mask off. But it was definitely a miss in that movie with Deadpool. And they kind of reeled it back in, and they're kind of taking a cue from Marvel. Anyway, so I guess Fox understood the error of their ways, and then they made X-Men First Class, which is a prequel to the original X-Men films. Much better. This X-Men has the character development. I'm emotionally involved with all of the characters. They brought in some pretty good actors. Jennifer Lawrence, Michael Fassbender. You know what I'm saying?
If you're using half your concentration to look normal, then you're only half paying attention to whatever else you're doing. Just pointing out something that could save your life.
And First Class has more of what I think the original X-Men movies needed, which was to stick closer to the source material. The magnitude of the stories in X-Men far exceed what you would get from a normal comic book. Yeah, there's superheroes and costumes and powers and all this kind of stuff. But X-Men is more than that. X-Men at times reads like a social commentary on the human condition. And throughout the years, X-Men has been able to keep up with, relevant social issues and be contemporary. Even in the conception of the X-Men comic, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee wanted to set out to make a comic that would speak to the social issues of America at the time. So what did they do? The protagonist and antagonist in X-Men, Professor X and Magneto, are based on the philosophies of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Professor Xavier, whose philosophy was more like Martin Luther King's, thought mutants and humans could live together harmoniously. However, Magneto's philosophy was more like Malcolm X. He thought humans and mutants should live separately and kind of do their own thing. And the conception of the X-Men comic was in 1963, where America was in the tide of civil rights movements. So what are the X-Men? The X-Men are a team led by Professor Xavier, who started a school for mutants so they could learn how to control their powers. And out of that school, he formed a team called the X-Men. The X-Men fight for mutant. And out of this school, he formed a team called the X-Men. Now, the X-Men is a team that he created to fight for mutant rights. They also fight against mutants who might want to harm humans. So it's easy to see that the X-Men may get caught in a conundrum or two. And behold, the significance of making an X-Men comic into a movie. The X-Men is one of my favorite Marvel teams. X-Men comics were never afraid to tackle controversial issues at the time. There's stories about women, complex friendships, mutant relationships with humans. I even think X-Men was the first comic to have a gay couple get married. X-Men is one of my favorite Marvel teams. The stories are imaginative, the universe is expansive, and almost rivals the size of the Marvel universe as a whole. And the ladies. Now, not only are the X-Men ladies beautiful, but I think they have the most females in a comic title of any other comic that I've seen anyway. These female characters are very complex and dynamic, and they're not just these one-dimensional Barbie dolls that are just pretty with powers. Overall, I did like the aesthetic of the film. There's a scene where Katniss Everdeen is like, "Let's go to war," and you have all the mutants in this beautiful, overly CG laden montage with this lovely melodic tune playing in the background, with the muties showing their particular set of skills, and I found that very refreshing. It was dope. However, some of the action scenes do look a little uninspired. There is a scene where Storm is using her powers and someone chunks like some debris at her, or like a half a car, and she does this little bunny hop to get out of the way, and it's like, come on, this is Aurora Monroe. She's like the goddess of the elements, and I just think there was a better way that she could have moved out of the way from that debris. That is a little nitpick. However, these are mutants and they have extraordinary abilities, and it shows in a comic, and they should just stick to the source material and just do the same thing. But there's a scene where Magneto and Professor Xavier are talking, and Magneto's like, "You sleep at night knowing they'll come for your children. I pity the fool that come in my school looking for trouble." And yes, I'm horribly paraphrasing, but you can see through the other two movies his growth in this movie from accomplishing the two big missions that were the main plot lines in the first two X-Men movies. And you have the scientist. She's speaking about Apocalypse, and she's talking about, 1,000 years ago he was the first mutant, and they're building upon that lore from the comic to set up Apocalypse, which he is a very powerful mutant. The trailer looked very refined, very polished. I thought it was very good looking. However, it's easy to make a dope trailer with just 2 or 3 minutes to show probably the best scenes in the movies. That's what a lot of movies are failing to do with their trailers right now, is not show all of the action in the whole movie in the trailer. There's a scene I really liked with Quicksilver, and he's like, "How are we gonna battle a god?" And there's a scene with him trying to battle Apocalypse, and he throws a punch at Apocalypse, and Apocalypse catches his hand and grows using his abilities to stretch his molecules and grow exponentially larger than his, normal form. And this is an awesome display of power, and this is what I was talking about in the scene with Storm. That was an awesome display of some of Apocalypse's abilities, and they could have done the same thing with Storm. People are even watching Storm right now because Halle Berry just ruined the goddamn role. I like how they're bringing better actors to play these roles. Michael Fassbender, Katniss Everdeen, just kidding, Jennifer Lawrence. You got Sansa Stark. And I like what they're doing. I like the direction that the second half of Fox's X-Men franchise is going. And there's a lot of potential for better movies, and they can just keep going with it if they play their cards right. The X-Men trailer looks very polished, very refined, but like a Michael Bay trailer, it could just be all glitz and no substance. I'm totally used to seeing this in movies where they show all the best action scenes in the trailer. Overall, I like the trailer. The movie looks great. I'm going to go see it. I just hope it's good and it continues along the path that the rest of the X-Men movies have gone thus far. And another thing, check out Comic Book Girl 19's Epic X-Men review, or Epic X-Men review parts 1 and 2. They're on her channel. Her channel is dope. Go look at it. Anyways, if you have any comments, leave them in the box down below. Like, subscribe. This is Black Nerd 2.0. I'm out. Peace.